This is Samantha Riley, and you're listening to the Studio Success Formula podcast.
Welcome to the Studio Success Formula podcast, the business school for dance studio owners. And now for your host, Clint Salter.
Hey there, dance studio owners. It's Clint Salter from Studio Success Formula, and thanks for joining us. Our guest today started her dance studio while her friends were still at university, and she's never looked back. She owned and operated her studio, which was based in Adelaide, Australia, for 18 years before selling it in 2011. Over the past 20 years, she has simultaneously owned multiple businesses and absolutely loves the adrenaline rush of entrepreneurship. Today, she helps business owners create social media and online marketing campaigns, which I know is such a popular topic of conversation for dance studio owners across the globe. Please welcome our guest on the show today, Samantha Riley. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Clint. Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Great for you to be here. I'm excited too. Now, Sam, you started your dance studio at a young age, which is very similar to me. What were some of the hurdles you faced in year one or year two that you weren't prepared for?
Oh, my goodness. I just cringe when I think back to my first year. You know, like we're 19 and we know everything, right?
Exactly.
Not so much. I think probably one of the biggest hurdles was just being taken seriously. Most people would come in and mums maybe in their 30s thinking, well, what's this 19-year-old girl doing here teaching my kids and what does she know? And as you would know from being a studio owner, actually being in the class and running a business are two very, very different things. And I hadn't seen the crossover of the both. I was thinking more about actually running the classes than sort of running the business. So that was probably my biggest hiccup. Yeah, and not having systems in place, not understanding the systems and procedures, of the lead gen, like from when someone gives me a call, because back then there was no email, there was no websites, there was nothing like that.
Telephones.
People would pick up the phone, the ones that went round and round, they weren't even mobiles then.
Yeah.
But, having the systems in place from the time that person called to the time that we had a student in the room, and then, how would you have that student sort of sign on to be a long-term student rather than just coming and doing a free class and leaving. So that was probably the biggest thing.
I love that you say, that was a big realization for you in year one, because, we work with lots of studio owners and I talk about having a no gaps enrollment process, from that initial inquiry all the way through to having them enroll, all the way through then to keeping them as a student. I mean, that should be as systemized as, McDonald's building a cheeseburger. It should be that kind of same system every time, the same process that people are going through to get them to be a student at your studio. And some people don't click on to that to many, many years into running their studio. So it's great that you realize that in year one.
Yeah, well, that I think that's the key, because having that system where people feel comfortable means that they've got trust in you and they're more likely to enroll their child anyway. It's if they know you and they like you and they trust you, then they're going to hang around. So that was a big thing. But, being young, and I don't know if you had this, Clint, but there's actually something that's really positive that I've noticed that's come out from people that do start their businesses young, and that is that the fear that we felt isn't as big as someone that's sort of a little bit older. We don't have as much to lose. So I kind of just got in there and did my thing, and things that may hold me back sort of, as I was older, didn't when I was younger. I was just like, doesn't matter. Let's just do it.
I love that.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me, that because I didn't really have a fear, because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I kind of just went ahead and did it instead of second guessing everything. So that was a big plus.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because you're right. As you get older and you might want to start a studio, maybe you're been teaching for many, many years and you might have a family and a husband or a wife. I mean, there's a lot of other things that you need to consider. If this doesn't work out, well, then what's going to happen? Whereas, when you're young, you're right, you're basically, in a way, fearless. And you're like, well, if this doesn't work out, still living with mum and dad, that's fine,
Yeah, totally.
So you throw yourself into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's something that I would even say to someone that was older, that don't allow that fear to hold you back. because it's that gutsy move and just do it. That's actually going to get you moving forward a lot faster.
100% agree. And I would even say that that comes kind of down to those studio owners that have had their studio maybe for 10, 20, 30, 40 years that are afraid of doing new things, that are afraid of actually taking that step to go, all right, I'm going to learn about online marketing. All right, I need to change up my teacher recruitment process, because they've continued to do the same thing all the time. And although they totally realize that it's not working for them anymore, but they're afraid to make that change. So I think that principle applies to them as well.
That is 100% correct. And that's something that I see from the business owners that I work with, that they say, I've been doing this for 20 years and it's worked for the last 20 years, so I'm just going to keep doing it. But the thing is that life isn't like it was 20 years ago. Everything has changed, and the way that we, do anything is so different to what it was 20 years ago. So I think that it's almost putting a nail in the coffin, just keeping that attitude, and that there are people to help you move ahead with the times. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, agree. Awesome. Now, as I mentioned, you had your dance studio for 18 years. Many studios don't reach that point because they either burn out, a lot of them burn out, or they give up, or they go in a completely new direction. What do you believe was the key for you to creating a business that survived for 18 years?
Yeah, okay.
And not just a business, a dance studio.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because a dance studio is its own animal, isn't it? It's kind of not like any other business I've run. But you're absolutely right. When I got to about the 5-year mark, I had massive burnout and actually wanted just to shut the doors and walk away from it. I didn't even want to. I just did. Just the thought of going and putting a key in the door used to give me goosebumps. But it was because I was doing everything. I think when we grow up in the dance studio, and dance is our whole life, and it's beaten into us from a young age that everything has to be perfect. And we have very clear ideas of exactly how we want everything to look. So it's like we can't let go of some of that control and doing everything. But it was at that 5-year mark that I thought, man, if I keep doing it like this, A, I'm going to be burnt out. B, my family's going to hate me even more than they already do because I was a snappy bitch.
No, I don't. But dance studio owners don't get snappy.
Oh, no, never. So what I did was I sat down and I figured out the classes that I loved to give, and I figured out the classes that I really didn't enjoy so much. So what I did then was, from there I could figure out, what classes do I need to get other teachers in to teach, and really just let go. What age groups was I better at teaching than other age groups, and I noticed that there was 2 age groups that I really loved, and they made me energized, where with some of the others I would just drag my feet into the studio. So I think that was a massive, massive point for me to go, well, and I think Michael Port talks about it, what are the clients that you have, or, the students that you have that give you energy, not take your energy?
Yeah, exactly. He talks about Michael Port, just so everyone knows, the author of Book Yourself Solid. He talks about his velvet rope policy.
It's a great, great book to read, and it's so true. From there I hired teachers and spent a lot more time as well in the waiting area with my parents. So rather than sort of being that cut-off teacher that was behind the scenes that no one could see, I was out there and I was talking with the parents. And there was a twofold thing. One, it kind of made them get to know me as a person, not a standoffish teacher. So, they could feel comfortable telling me about things that maybe weren't going so well. And that was great for me, because then I could create systems around that, which means that then, the flow-on effect of that was that the parents were happier and more calm and relaxed. And the other thing was that when I was out there was not so much gossip happening. When you're away, it's amazing what parents can do.
Yeah, amazing what they can conjure up in that waiting room for a couple of hours.
It's disgusting sometimes, isn't it? But anyway, yeah. And the other thing is that and this is something that I think is a huge importance, is I hired the best teachers that were available. So I didn't hire on who was the cheapest. I hired on who was the best, because I wanted to hand over 100% control of those classes, so that those teachers could not only take those classes, but, be able to look after the costume design or look after their own music or whatever it was. And it meant that my student retention was a lot higher than if it was just one of my 16-year-old students taking the class where the class retention wasn't as high. So I didn't hire based on how much it was costing me. I based on who was the absolute best that I could get, into my studio at that time.
Yeah, and I think that that's great because isn't that realization? I love how you said, 5 years in, because I reckon there's a lot of dance studio owners who are listening to this going, oh my God, she's just described exactly how I feel right now. And you might be 3 years, you might be 5, you might be 10 years in, but it happens to so many people because you are wearing so many hats and you just can't see how the studio would run without you not doing everything.
Absolutely.
Because you think, I can't afford to employ someone. I can't afford to do that. Where you've actually, you can't afford not to because, again, you're focusing on these low value tasks. A lot of the time, great that you were able to kind of identify, these are the classes I love. These are the classes that completely suck my energy and make me feel unmotivated. And you're doing a disservice, as you would have realized, a disservice to your students if you're actually taking those classes, so get them in front of those teachers that, that love tap or love contemporary, and that's what they breathe and they're passionate about. And like you said, you paid them what they were worth to be able to give those students just such a great experience that kept them there as students.
Yeah, totally. And isn't that great for the whole industry, like for the industry as a whole? Do you know what I mean? Like looking at the big picture, much better.
Oh yeah, look, 100%. It's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's really great to talk to other dance studio owners or have previous owners on the podcast who can really share kind of from the trenches what they were going through, because so many people are facing it. Now, like I mentioned, you did sell your dance studio. And look, a lot of our members, I've had a lot of clients that have, come to me saying, I want to prepare my studio for sale. And, there's that great, I talk about the E-Myth, Michael Gerber so often because, if you want to sell your business, I always say that's just the first book to read because although it's predominantly around franchising, it's a systems book. It teaches you how to systemize your business. And I think for a lot of studio owners, there's a lot of things that they just keep in their head, like the enrollment process or, the invoicing process, whatever it might be. A lot of it's just in your head. So it's about extracting that and putting systems in place. But can you give us some tips if there's studio owners out there that are potentially looking at selling, soon or in the near future? What would you say are some things that they've got to start focusing on now to get in place?
Yeah, totally. So this is something that I didn't nail because I had a big change of life event. So this process was really sped up for me, which was a bit of a shame because I knew that it's actually the system that's worth the money. I was a bit lucky because I had a McDonald's background. So I knew the importance of systems. Man, those manuals are brilliant.
Aren't they great?
Yeah, it taught me a lot. So I'm really lucky that I came from that background. But it like you said, it's about the system. So it's making sure that your database is set up correctly. So not just with your current students, but your prospects and leads so that whoever comes in has already got that all in place. And having an automated email sequence from the time that people are on your website so that everything's running seamlessly. Having project management software so that your year is mapped out, things like closing dates for Stedford's exams, when do you need to book the theatre for the end of year performance, what date do you need to order your trophies to make sure that you've got them in time, and having that all in that project management software so it doesn't matter who walks in, they can just press the button and know exactly what needs to happen. And something else I set up was my normal newsletters were all in my in a system so that every year, and my parents had no idea, it was exactly the same newsletter that was going out for that month every year. I would change little tiny things, but generally it was exactly the same newsletter. We're leading into a Stedfords this week, this is what needs to happen. Or we've got exams next week, this is what's got to happen. Because, with a dance studio, you're pretty much replicating year after year exactly the same thing. So I believe that that's the biggest thing. It's all about the systems. And like you said, the invoicing, have that all set up properly so that it doesn't need to be manual. So just think about if I had a 12-year-old walking in tomorrow, could they run it? If the answer is yes, you're in the perfect position to be able to sell for a better amount of money, or for a higher amount.
And that's the thing. It's the value, because so many people say, "Oh, the dance studio is just based on goodwill," and it's like, no, if you're running it like a business, there's a lot there. There's a lot of assets within that business that you can sell that are worth valuable money to a prospective buyer.
Totally. That's actually a really good point, because there was a perception in Adelaide, and I don't know if it was just in Adelaide, I don't know if it's around the country or overseas, but there was a lot of people that had said to me, you can't sell a dance studio because the kids come to you for you, and when you sell it, you'll leave. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to call BS on that, because I've got these systems in place and I've got all these different teachers, so why would they only come to me for me?
It shouldn't be that. Yeah, I mean, that if you're running it, we kind of talk about the different phases a studio goes through, and, down the bottom, which is not down the bottom, but it is down the bottom of the ladder, is like a hobby studio. And the hobby studio is, you and maybe up to, 100 or 200 students, and it's kind of just all about you. I mean, that's really hard to sell.
Yeah,
but if you're actually
absolutely.
running it as a business, and, you, like you said, you are maintaining the relationships with the parents, you are the owner, you're the business owner, you're the entrepreneur, then there's so many other things happening in the studio. So many studio owners say to me, but Clint, I can't take a week holiday or 2 weeks holidays when dancing's on. I'm like, if you're running a business, you should be able to do that. You should have the processes, the systems in place so that you can be on email or on the phone if needed, of course, but that you don't actually have to be there physically at the studio for everything to run.
Totally. I was away 4 weeks of the year overseas in term, and it never made any difference.
Yeah. And that's what we want our studio owners to get to. That's a good point. Thanks for sharing that, Sam. Now, look, people are listening to the podcast, and they're probably mothers or fathers. They've got families. They've got a lot of other stuff going on. How did you manage to juggle studio life and family life during the years that you had your studio?
I'm guessing you're hoping for a wise answer here.
Oh, look, you know what? I love it. I love asking this question to studio owners because it's always really interesting to see what the answers are.
Okay, here's my answer. Not very well.
Yeah, look, and that's, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat.
Yeah, so we owned, was me and my husband owned 2 dancewear stores at the same time that I was running my studio, and I had 3 children. I used to leave the shop at like 3 o'clock. I used to race and do the school pickup, go straight to the studio, and that's where my kids grew up, in the waiting area at the studio, which, there's some points of that they still talk about, like they're older now and they've got some great memories of growing up there, but boy, have I got some bad memories of, the kids fighting or not being well, and I can't get out of there. In the last few years, I realised it was a huge problem. So I had a family daycare mum that used to pick them up from school and take them home and give them dinner, and she used to drop them back to me at the studio ready to take them home. So that's something that I wish I had have done sooner, because the cost wasn't huge monetary-wise, but just to have my head so that I was 100% focused on my students and parents, and not have to be worrying with the kids in the car park or, were they fighting with one of the other kids, that cost was huge. Do you know what I mean? So it was the monetary cost was nothing compared to the cost of having that clear headspace. So I should have done that years and years earlier, because she was a godsend.
And I think I didn't have children when I had my dance studio, and I don't now. But I think what I've seen with our members as well, that you navigate it the best way you know how. And so many studio owners, have talked about in our membership group that we have, is that a lot of the time, they do feel a little bit guilty. They feel guilty that their kid is in the waiting room or in the office, and the office staff are warming up their dinner in the microwave while you're teaching a class or whatever it might be.
Totally.
And they feel guilty. And how do you did you ever feel guilty? How did you kind of overcome and move through that?
Massive guilt, because the kids are at school all day, and the second school finishes, we're on, and we're on till 9 or 10 at night. Saturday I was teaching all day, so I was hugely guilty because it was like every time my children were not at school, I was working. It's probably something I guess I still kind of feel bad about. I didn't really do that very well. So I'm not the wise one to be asking these questions to.
No, but it's just refreshing. I think it'd be refreshing for other studio owners to hear that, that's how they feel, and other people are going through it as well.
Yeah.
It's not just them. You're not the only person that feels sometimes like not the best parent on the world. And you know what? That's okay, because I reckon as a dance studio owner, you're probably giving your children an amazing experience, life experience.
When it was actually a really funny story. My youngest son, when I actually sold the studio in the end because I was a single mum and I just had him with me, and I thought, I feel really guilty that I'm not spending enough time with him. So I was really excited. I'm like, I've decided to sell the studio, buddy. And he cried. I'm like, what? What's wrong? He's like, I'm never going to get married. That's where all the girls are. So it's a bit of just a bit of the other side of it. So whilst I was guilty, both of my boys absolutely said that they love growing up and being surrounded by girls all day, every day.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they loved that about the studio. Now, I want to talk about social media, because that's a space you play in currently, and it's a subject that dance studio owners are always talking about. And so from your experience, how can social media help dance studios that are listening to increase their brand awareness, but more importantly, generate more revenue through building student numbers? Yeah,
this is a really great question, because I believe that there's a lot of opportunity for dance studios on social media, because dance is such a visual art, and it's also very community or team-based. Most studio owners I don't think there's many that would say it doesn't feel like a family. Most of us would say, our dance studio was our family.
Exactly.
So that creates a lot of opportunity. I think one of the things to think about, and it's something, especially at this time of year when I'm seeing so many dance studio posts coming up in my feed, is that people are actually on social media to have fun or to enjoy themselves. We don't want to see posts that are saying about, just a text post about how good I am. We don't want to see that. We want to see things that are entertaining to prospective clients. So thinking about what are the stories or what are the pictures that your ideal or your prospective parent or student wants to see. They don't necessarily want to hear about how good you are. They want to see and feel how they're going to feel if they're at your studio. So that's one of the things. I think that making sure that you've got your URL or your website address in your about or in your profile description, so that if something piques their interest, that they can go further, and contact you. Some other little tips, I guess, is having your existing clients leave Facebook reviews on your page. I don't think enough people are using this as a tip. So you've got your little star rating on your Facebook page. Your students are your raving fans. They're usually very loyal to their studio. So asking them to leave a review about how much they love the studio, most of them will be excited by that they're being included in that process. And that also means that people coming to your page can trust you and can see that, okay, this is a dance studio that's got lots of reviews, so it must be okay. And so sort of that's how to run your social media. And I'll definitely be on Facebook and Instagram, like being the visual kind of social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But there's I also think that studios have got a great opportunity to have closed groups. I don't know if I have been out of I guess, dancing while Facebook's been around, but I don't know if studio owners are using closed groups, but it's a great way to post to parents in a closed environment.
Yeah.
Where I'm seeing a lot of teachers posting stuff to their students on their normal business page, and I think that needs to be separated.
I agree. So the way we kind of come at it is that, yeah, definitely when you're thinking about community and the people that are inside your studio, your students, your teachers, your parents, anyone that's got anything to do with your studio, have that closed group to communicate, to further build trust, credibility. Like you said, we call them raving fans too, build those raving fans. And that's where all your communication is kind of centralized. And then your page, I'm all about, your page is about acquisition. Your page isn't, where your family are hanging out. That's where you want new people coming.
That's right.
So, yeah, similar to what you said, they need to be very separate, because you don't want on your page, hey, everyone, your fees are due. You don't want to see that on a public.
The other day, and I thought, ooh, it just doesn't sit well.
No.
Yeah, and if I saw that, that's not going to make me want to inquire about joining that studio. I want to see a business page that looks like it's being run as a business.
Yeah, exactly. And so, look, that's a really great tip to give, and really and super important. What do you think? You've seen a couple of social, some Facebook ads, probably in some posts pop up in your newsfeed over the last, month. What are like 2 or 3 big mistakes that you see studio owners making when putting together their social media strategy?
Yeah, okay, so this is really interesting, because the most massive problem, and this is the biggest problem by far, is that people don't have a strategy around their social media. It's like they're just randomly posting whatever comes into their head. And the problem is that when you do things randomly, you'll get random results. Mm-hmm. So, it's like, I guess the metaphor is if you get a bucket of paint and throw it at the wall and you're just going to see what sticks, not only do you end up with half your paint on the floor, but it looks really ugly. So you're better off to sit down and go, okay, well, what colours do I need? What paintbrushes do I need? Let's make a beautiful picture, and let's make it look fantastic. And that's what a strategy is like. It's sitting down and going, okay, well, what's my ideal outcome? What's the desired outcome? And what kind of posts do I need, or what kind of ads do I need to run to get that desired outcome? The other thing that I see is that people aren't targeting their Facebook ads properly. So dance studios, as a general rule, are a local business. And I've been seeing a lot of Facebook ads come up in my newsfeed for dance studios in Victoria and Adelaide and Queensland, and I live in Sydney. So that's wasting money by advertising in those areas. They should be targeting just not only their own city but their local area. So, really know who your avatar is or who your ideal client is, and target not just by location, but, where else are those clients hanging out, and target specifically to those people. Otherwise, you're just throwing money down the drain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I'm the same. Yesterday I saw like 2 from Queensland, and I actually sent them a message. I said, hey guys, I'm just letting you know that you need to rethink this a little bit, because, and I'm definitely not your target audience. Even if I was in your local area, I'm not your demographic.
No, totally.
I could be, I could be a young father, but the fathers aren't making these decisions, so hey, I'm just the wrong person.
Absolutely. Well, I can probably give you a long list of other dance studios to collect, because they are just popping up in my newsfeed all over the place at the moment. And I just think it's a real shame, because, that money could be going to it being spent somewhere else, much more worthwhile.
Yeah, or still, definitely spent on Facebook.
Oh, absolutely.
But look at the, I'm just about to do a lesson actually for our members on the Power Editor, and anyway. And just getting specific, who is that? Who are you targeting? And it's not about you saying, I'm a dance studio that has, jazz, tap, ballet, acro, all ages, 2.5 to professional, every teacher you could think of. I mean, you can't be all things to all people. So even if you offer all of those things, it's about targeting, your preschoolers, targeting, that 8 to 10 age group, targeting that cheerleading, the cheerleading, targeting whatever it might be, it has to be super, super targeted, and especially from a location perspective.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're throwing money, you might as well just go and just throw, $100 on the road.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, $100 on the road and attach a business card, you might get a lead out of that. But the way that you're doing it through Facebook, if it's not targeted, and then the worst thing is though, is it gets Facebook advertising then gets a bad rap because people go, well, it doesn't work.
Oh my goodness.
And you would probably hear that all the time with your clients. They're like, oh, Sam, but I've done it and it doesn't work. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, when you do it correctly, it works extremely well.
Yeah, it's like going to the gym, and going on the bike for half an hour and going like a quarter of the speed that you should, still eating the same food, and after a week going, nah, the gym doesn't work.
Exactly. Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
I was going to say, there's our rant right there.
On its own. Anyway, I want to wrap this up. It's been a really great conversation, and I want to thank you for sharing, your great tips, your honesty around your studio as well, and what you went through, and your social media tips. So I'd love to ask for some final words. What would you love to leave our studio owners with in relation to making social media work for them?
Yeah, so going back to what I was saying earlier about social media, people are there to be entertained. So there's 3 areas that you should think about when you're posting. Make sure that your posts are, there's 3 types. Educational, so what are you educating them about? Inspirational and motivational. And the third one is entertaining, because people aren't on social media to buy. I mean, they will buy on there, but they're not predominantly there to buy. So engage with people, open up the conversation, make it really interesting. Think about the stories that you're trying to sell with images, with video. And the other thing to remember is that posts which contain images make up 93% of the most engaging posts. So don't ever put anything up without an image or a video.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And if you're doing a Facebook ad, make sure you've only got 20% text in the image. I just wanted to throw that in because the amount of people that, I know that go, the ad keeps getting, we're putting a poster up and it keeps getting, not approved.
Yes.
20% text, everyone. Just a little side note. Great. Sam, it's been great talking to you. We hang out and we're friends, but it's been a really good conversation. I think there's so much kind of value from the discussion we've had for studio owners, out there. So I want to say a big thank you for coming on the show.
It's always a pleasure to be around you.
Oh, thank you. And so if people want more information about you, Sam, and the wonderful things that you're doing, where can they head?
Okay, so we've got stressfreestartups.com is a website that's got lots of blogging around, starting your business or getting that turnover to your first $1 million. And then I've also got the accelerantgroup.com.au, which is predominantly around social media and digital marketing and websites. And you can find both of those, Stress-Free Startups and the Accelerant Group, both on Facebook also.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll make sure we put the links to all of your awesome businesses on our show notes.
Well, thanks so much, Clint.
Cool. Great to chat with you. Take care and we'll speak soon.
See ya. Bye.
If you want more strategies to grow your dance studio, we have something awesome we want to send you. It's a 4-part video training series on how you attract, enroll, and retain more students in your dance studio. You won't find this information anywhere else. As one of our listeners, we'd love to give you this video training series absolutely free. You can get access to the video training right now by going to attractstudentstoday.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time.